guys, and welcome to a new review video. I often review mascaras and foundations, but it's been a really long time since I have reviewed an eyeshadow palette. So today I'm gonna be reviewing this little guy, the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. This palette has been around for quite some time now, and I have been meaning to review it a lot earlier than this, but to review a palette it does take a little while because I do need to make sure that I have tested it quite thoroughly. And so in this video I will start from giving you a little bit of technical details, then we will proceed to first impressions and application, and I will at the very end give you my final thoughts on how this palette has performed over a number of weeks. As you probably are aware, this is another palette in the Urban Decay Naked range. It currently retails for approximately £39.50 and $54 in the US. You get 12 shadows, 1.3 grams each, and 8 out of those 12 shadows are matte. It comes in a plastic case with a mirror and brush, which is a standard for Urban Decay palettes. It is cruelty free, and from the reviews that I have seen, it does appear that the average star rating is 4.8 stars out of 5, which is very high. It's probably one of the highest rated products that I have actually seen or tested on this channel. And now let's get to first impressions and application. Looking at the packaging itself, I don't know what it reminds me of. I think it reminds me of Miami Vice, the old one, the one I think from the 80s. I don't know, I think maybe just the lettering on it, that's what it reminds me of. Anyway, this is made of plastic. There is a mirror here, but well, actually I might as well just use it today. I don't normally use those kind of mirrors, but it would be handy. Now the shades are obviously absolutely gorgeous, but what you can straight away see is that they are basically all very similar. You have some mattes, and then you have like a chocolate shimmery tone, and then you have some really pretty rosy purplish colors. For the first time I am touching these. I'm so nervous. This is beautiful. I really love this color. That was Scorched. I have no doubt that the shades must be good quality. I wouldn't expect any less. Just for the sake of this review, I will actually be using the brush from the palette, just so that we have a very comprehensive review. Obviously I could have used different brushes, but it's pretty decent. So yeah, let's try to just make do with one brush. There are really two ends to this brush, so you have more, I would say, fluffy brush on this side, and then this one is a little bit more dense and a little bit more flat on the other side. Okay, so let's just try to do a whole makeup look just with this palette. So obviously I have heard a lot of complaints that it's very difficult to have either a complete look with this palette or have more than one look with this palette, but today, just for the trial purposes, we'll obviously be making just one look. Let's start with Ounce. That's the very first shade. This is like the lightest shade in the palette, so that will be our base. There is a little bit of kickback, but not too much. Okay, so this is literally just like powder, but coat an eyeshadow. Even though I have already used the Ounce one, I will also try the chaser because it's slightly darker, so I want to see whether it will be at all visible on my eyelid. Is it me, or is there a lot of kickback on this? Look at this. I'm not usually very fussy about those things, but that's kind of odd. Anyway, let me be a little bit more gentle with the other shades. Okay, yeah, you can definitely see this one, so I can put this one where my crease would normally be. Crease which does not unfortunately exist in my case, but let's pretend. Okay, so the chaser is, I would call it also a base color, but because it is in fact a little bit darker than the first one, it would definitely be better for slightly deeper tones. Not very deep because it would be too light. So I will now be using the Cayenne. This is a warm brown tone. This is matte color. I will try to use it in my crease. Very nicely pigmented, so that's really good. The brush works really well as well. This one is a little bit patchy, but that's often the case with matte eyeshadows, and you can always blend it out. And obviously this is just kind of crease shade. It's a little bit lighter than I expected, so we might have to use another one on top of this one, but we will be putting other eyeshadows on top of this. Now just because this turned out to be a little bit lighter than I expected, I'm gonna use another shade just in the corners here, just to emphasize the fake crease I've been attempting to create. So let's use, this is a really dark shade, but let's try it, Ashes. So this is a really dark purple shade, and this is matte, obviously. I took just a teeny tiny bit, yeah, It's good that I did, because as you can see, there's quite a bit of pigment in it, and we don't want to overdo it. Well, we'll probably overdo it anyway. Wow, I just realized there's only 4 shimmery shades. That's quite unusual. So what I will do now, I will use this shade in Fuego. This is the really, I would say, deep purplish reddish color. I will use it just to line my eye. That's gonna be tricky with this brush, but let's try. So just, well, it is a little bit too thick, just by the lash line, really. For a complete look, I can straight away say that I am missing a really, really dark shade here. So that's just if I wanted to use only this palette to have a complete look, I would need a darker color. I don't want to push too much, but it seems that I'm not putting enough. Just to do something a little bit different, we'll try to use He Devil on the lower lash line. Normally, I would use a really thin brush for my lower line because obviously we don't want to create raccoon eyes, but because I'm trying to test this palette, I have no choice. So I have to use a fairly brown and natural looking shade in case I mess up, which no doubt I will with this brush. Okay, so far so good. No major drama here. Now we will do maybe something a little bit more unorthodox. So what I will do now, I will use this Lumbre, I don't know how to pronounce it. This is a shimmery shade, so I will use it on my top eyelid. It's really pretty. I do like it. Just sort of in the center. What I would normally do, I would actually highlight the corners of my eyes a little bit at least. Now we don't have a shade that would be good for highlighting. We have only light matte shades, or we have pinkish shimmery shades. So we will experiment a little bit. And let's just put this shade in the corners instead. It's not bad at all, even though that's definitely not the kind of shade I would be highlighting with. You might be able to highlight with this shade if you have a deeper skin tone and not neutralize this color. We will use the ants again. To do some highlighting on the lid itself, we're gonna use Scorched. I'm not sure how it's gonna look like, but it looks like it's very shimmery. It's a satin shimmer. Our lid is a teeny bit more visible. It's a lovely color, I love it. Absolutely beautiful, nicely pigmented. Okay, let's try to use one more. I've already put most of them on my eyelid anyway, just to try them out. Let's try the last one because I am quite curious about it. This is the Amber. This is like a metallic chocolate, kind of dark chocolate. Let's put it just on the lower eyelid to emphasize the corners. It's lovely, I really like it. Move it a little bit along so that we can have this smoky eye effect. I think that will be it, guys. What I would normally do at this point is run with a clean brush. Well, I'm trying to make the one I have here clean and just do this, just to make sure that everything is softly blended, especially in this area, because this is basically just above the fake crease which I have tried to create. I will now just add a touch of mascara, not a touch, a lot of mascara, and I will be right back. Okay guys, so this is the finished look. So this is obviously the first look that came to my mind when I started using those shades. I will definitely be trying this palette out properly throughout the month, and then obviously I will add the conclusion to this video and my final thoughts. I will also try to create as many looks as I possibly can with this palette, possibly with some extra eyeshadows, just because there are a few things that are missing from this eyeshadow palette for me to be able to create a complete range of looks. However, this is definitely a beautiful palette. It is really nicely pigmented. The colors are beautiful. They are mostly matte colors, which doesn't happen often, and there are a few shimmery shades. There was a little bit of kickback with those 2 eyeshadows here, as you can possibly see, because there is some loose powder here, but there's nothing on my face. So when I applied it to my face, it went on perfectly, no kickback whatsoever. So overall, I am really pleased with the results. I do like the makeup that I've created as well. As I said, I will continue using this palette for a longer period of time. I just want to check whether this palette is actually worth purchasing, because it is expensive. Urban Decay shadows are some of the most expensive shadows you can get per weight. So I will be testing this palette and I will definitely tell you what I think, and if I manage to create looks with it other than this one, I will also perhaps make a video about that. Okay guys, so I will see you in a moment. palette now for a number of weeks. I have tried to create different looks. I wore it mainly to work, so I wore it on an everyday basis. I'm actually wearing it today as well. No doubt this is a really nice palette. It's great quality, there's pretty much no kickback, the shadows are very blendable, and you don't really need much. Literally after a number of weeks of using this palette looks like I haven't used it almost at all. It's probably gonna take a really long time to actually use it up, which is amazing because Urban Decay eyeshadows are some of the most expensive eyeshadows per gram of product out there. So let's talk about some of the positive features of this palette. As you can probably notice, most of the eyeshadows in this palette are actually matte, something that I've noticed a lot of people really enjoy, not just in this palette but in general. There's only, as far as I can tell, about 4 shimmery eyeshadows. The top one, the lightest one, that seems to have a little bit of shimmer, maybe satin finish, and the color range of the matte eyeshadows is actually really nice as well. You literally have a full range from the lightest one, which is great for a base, to this really dark one. This is Ashes. This is like a really deep, rich purple shade. So this is the darker one in the whole palette. There is another one which is a little bit darker than Ashes, but this is a shimmery color. As pretty much all Urban Decay palettes, this is a really nice sturdy packaging. This palette comes with a big mirror. Again, this is a standard feature in all Urban Decay palettes. It comes with a really nice brush as well. The bristles of the brush are really soft. Even if you did not want to use another brush, this would be sufficient for you to actually do your everyday makeup. One thing I would say about this brush is that it's pretty thick on both sides, so if you needed something more tapered, thinner, something more precise, you would probably need to use a different brush. That's what I needed to do. The closing of the packaging is magnetic, again great for traveling, very sturdy plastic box. The shadows no doubt are really beautiful. The color range is really beautiful. When testing this palette, I actually managed to get away with just literally one eyeshadow look if I didn't want to make too much effort. The shadows are very pigmented. You don't really have to apply a lot of product to achieve a really nice result. On the other hand, because this is obviously a brown purplish palette, you can easily wear those eyeshadows, pretty much all of them, on an everyday basis, which I did. I would wear these mainly to work. Also, I have managed to create a number of looks with different eyeshadows, and I also at some point started to wear only one eyeshadow per day. I just wanted to see whether it is possible to have a nice makeup only with one eyeshadow rather than a combination, and you absolutely can. It is definitely better to use the darker shadows because they are more visible, or the shimmery ones, but I also managed to create a look. It wasn't really a look, but I used the lighter shades as well on an everyday basis, only one eyeshadow, and I was absolutely fine. Also, because all of the eyeshadows are pretty much from the same color range, it's very easy to first create a day look and then transform it into a night look, so you can easily use any of those eyeshadows here for a really natural day look, and then if you actually wanted to top it up in the evening with one of the darker ones or shimmery ones, you can definitely create a beautiful night look as well. Now, that being said, this palette has had quite a lot of criticism because in fact you have so many similar eyeshadows, and I wouldn't call those shades similar. Actually, they are definitely from the same color range. You definitely see a lot of warm tones in pretty much all of those eyeshadows. The problem with that is when you apply it to your eyelid and you apply, let's say, 3 eyeshadows, they will blend together, so in the end you will not really be able to easily distinguish where you've applied which shade. But that's just normal with this kind of palette where you have colors which are all with warm brown undertones, and this is definitely the feature of this palette. But on the other hand, if you are the kind of person who really does not want to make a lot of fuss about their eye makeup, especially on an everyday basis, this is a great palette because it's just so easy to combine those eyeshadows. Literally, you can't go wrong. You cannot mess it up. You will never look ridiculous or exaggerated. Your look will always be beautiful. You can make it as subtle as you want or as vivid and dark as you wish. You really have the perfect color range if you want to stick to a similar look on an everyday basis, and a natural look at that. Now, some of the cons that I wanted to mention, those are just according to my personal preferences. First of all, I actually prefer more shimmery shades than matte shades. I find it a lot easier to create a quick look with a shimmery shade than with a matte shade. So to me, if this palette mainly consisted of shimmery shades, I would be a lot happier with it than when it comes with, well, pretty much 7 or even 8 matte shades. To me, that's just too many. I don't apply that many matte shades on an everyday basis, so I would rather just have more shimmery shades, but that's just my personal preference. Another feature which I have mentioned before is that you actually have warm undertones in all of those shadows, which is great, but I think when you have one palette you would want to have some cooler tones as well, which in turn would allow you to create more looks. There really aren't any cooler brown shades that I can possibly find, and one of the most important things that this palette is missing, again, that's a personal preference. Whenever I do a makeup look with one palette, I really want to have something to highlight and something to contour my eye. And what I mean by that is that I would love to have a really nice light shimmery shade, something that I can accentuate the corners of my eyes with, for example. And then because I don't normally use an eyeliner, I always like to have a dark charcoal or even very dark brown shade to contour my eye with. So I would literally apply that eyeshadow in a really thin line just above my lashes, and it would make my lashes look fuller when I'm not actually wearing an eyeliner. So again, this is unfortunately missing from this palette, but that is just my personal preference. Overall, this is definitely a beautiful palette. It's amazing quality, something that Urban Decay is pretty much known for. You have a wonderful packaging, which is really nice and sturdy but not too heavy, and you also get a really nice quality brush. So if you are a fan of warm beiges and warm tones in general, and you just perhaps don't have a palette with very many warm brown shades, then I would definitely recommend getting this palette because it's beautiful, and the looks you create with it, they are just so easy to create and you can't mess it up. So even as a makeup beginner, you just can't go wrong. You really can't do anything that would make you look bad in those eyeshadows. Overall, I would say it's a beautiful palette. It's not particularly versatile, and that is something that a lot of people pointed out, but remember that Urban Decay has a good range of eyeshadow palettes, and they have some with cooler tones as well. So this palette, I guess, was just meant to be a warmer selection of eyeshadows. It's called Naked Heat, so obviously I guess that was the intention of the creators of this palette. Please do let me know how you feel about this palette, if you own it, if you're thinking about buying it, whether it bothers you that all of the shades are pretty much from the same color range. And if you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, which I hope you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel because I love testing products, and a lot of the time I will actually test older products as well to give them a nice fresh review. And I am now trying to test more eyeshadow palettes as well, so stay tuned for the next review, and I will see you in my next video, guys. Bye bye.